As I stated, my MOS or military occupational specialty, as it's known, was 71 hotel, which is basically administrative. And I ended up being an officer's records clerk, but my first job was just individual records, and I was, after leaving basic training, assigned to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and we helped to process and do orders up on soldiers that were returning from Vietnam, because at that time they were doing withdrawal of a lot of troops. They were still there, but a lot of the troops were processing back in, and I think that was my first real experience, other than just being in basic training and going through the motions and learning, how to shoot and all the things that go along with being, quote, in the military. This was my first experience, although I wasn't there, kind of with what war was and the effects that it had on people like myself. Because we would process soldiers who were returning, and it was very odd. It was almost like you stepped from one zone into another zone, because as they would come in and come into a room or just walk across a parking lot, you could tell that there was something about just sort of an off time with them. The way they moved, kind of their motivation. I guess you would even look at it as a desire to be, to be active. You would think that they were returning from a war, from a bad situation, and that they would almost automatically be a little bit upbeat. But it almost seemed the opposite. It seemed like you could tell there was a depression there with them. And I kind of compared it to being like a zombie-like state for some reason. And that's when I knew that, okay, this was a lot more than just this romanticism that I thought about when I thought about enlisting, about going to war and, doing my part. This was about the real effects of what that nightmare was like for real people. And it changed you. I'm sure they didn't desire to be like they were, but it was obvious that some of them were not in a good place. And which, brings up the whole point about what kind of treatment did they get. Were those symptoms really recognized, or was it just kind of blown over when it came to giving treatment, to veterans? Because it wasn't just a physical thing. It was very evidently a lot of mental torment that they were going through. So that really did, I think, caused me to kind of really look at, what this military thing was all about. And, it was about real people, and, just that experience. That was the first experience I had. So even after that, going to Germany and going to different places, you learn how to read, the other people that you served with, whether or not they had been in combat, or if they were just getting ready to go to combat, or whatever their position was. You learn how to appreciate a little bit about what they might be going through, and how to communicate with them on a lot of different levels.